We've got a new rumor that Jon Favreau will be exiting Star Wars following the release of the Mandalorian and Grogu film that is expected to arrive sometime in 2026. It is the first theatrical film since the rise of Skywalker. Before we get into this, though, I'd like to ask you please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. This is over at thatparkplace.com and it is written by Scooper WDW Pro, who received information from a number of sources. This is what one of the sources say regarding Favreau's fate with the Mandalorian and Grogu film and what will take place afterwards. He says Favreau has had his fourth season of The Mandalorian painstakingly mapped out, ripped from him. Now he's making a movie out of the last two episodes he had planned, but they're not even his. Dave Filoni has been brought in to plus those two episodes into something theatrical that can be tied into his Thrawn Ahsoka story. Imagine being Favreau and you're finishing out your contract with a movie, and the guy in the cowboy hat with no theatrical experience is now co-writer and co-director. They might not call him a co-director yet, but I wouldn't count him out given his position at Lucasfilm and his desire to build a resume in film. So that is what the source informed WDW Pro of about Jon Favreau and his fate following The Mandalorian and Grogu. I think this matches up with what we've been hearing from a lot of rumors. Obviously, Filoni was just kind of appointed the creative head of Lucasfilm and Star Wars moving forward. I think that was earlier this year. So it's not surprising that he is kind of making creative decisions in regards to Favreau's film here. We also know that Filoni is indeed trying to bring in his Ahsoka Thrawn story, and it's likely that that could go into theatrical. We've heard rumors that this Mandalorian and Grogu film could potentially be a trilogy, and it would include a lot of that Ahsoka and Thrawn storyline that is happening. Obviously, that stuff was being hinted at as well in the final season of The Mandalorian with all the Imperial stuff and that Imperial, I don't know, what that council, the Shadow Council, I think is what they called them, discussing Thrawn's return and the internal struggles that were happening there. So it does look like all that stuff is kind of tied into it. So this doesn't really surprise me. I think it does add up from what we've seen and what other rumors we've heard from other people. So it looks like it could be accurate. I know we've heard lots of rumors regarding Favreau and Star Wars before. I know there's lots of people that think Favreau has done a really good job. I'm not one of those. I think he has struggled mightily, even in the first and second seasons. I thought there was a lot of issues just with the episodes themselves. I mean, you look at the first one, there's the whole training sequence where he has to train I don't even remember what the animal's called off the top of my head right now, but he's got to train that animal. And the reason why they say he has to train it so he can traverse the planet to get to where we end up finding where Grogu is. But that didn't really make any sense to me. I think it kind of broke immersion because he could have just flown his ship over there, blasted them from the sky, and then maybe done some kind of aerial assault and captured or eliminated Grogu, which was his bounty. So I thought that was just kind of a little bit ridiculous, just padding, a little bit poor storytelling. Then I thought there was a lot of other things where he had like some interesting concepts, but they didn't pan out real well. There was the whole like baptism thing that he was doing with the Mandalorians in the third season. And I thought that there was some interesting stuff to that, but it needs to be fleshed out a little bit more and kind of actually shown what the purpose of this was, why this was important to Mandalorian culture, etc. I don't think we really got any of that. And then that kind of like leads into the whole thing where like I felt like there was a lot of contradictions on what Mandalorian culture was, the removal of the helmet, the keeping of the helmet on, why Bo-Katan was immune to the rules and all of that stuff. And it just didn't really make a lot of sense. I don't feel like he really did a good job of selling a lot of that stuff and convincing me that is indeed how those characters would react based on how he'd shown them react or act previously. So I think the show had a lot of problems. Third season obviously had the injection of feminism with Bo-Katan basically taking over, becoming the main character of The Mandalorian. I thought there was some promise at the end. That was pretty much the best part of the third season, was like the final scene where it was like, oh, we're actually going to go back to him like being a bounty hunter and taking on various jobs in the Outer Rim, which is what Favreau had originally promised the show would be before it turned into kind of Din Djarin, the babysitter for Grogu. So and that's what it did. And then obviously you have the Book of Boba Fett stuff that he was involved in as well. You would see he was involved in with at least, especially when Din Djarin goes and meets up with Grogu, and then Luke Skywalker's whole training of Grogu. I found that absolutely repugnant. How he gave him that kind of choice between the Jedi or the Mandalorian. That I don't think that's how Luke Skywalker would act at all. He actively chose not to do that when it came to his father. He rejected that all the time. When it seemed like Obi-Wan and Yoda were giving him those instructions, he found a different way. And the fact that then he was just kind of going back to do that, that's not how Luke would act at all. It felt very Rian Johnson sequel trilogy-esque, still trying to break down Luke Skywalker and build into who that character was that Rian Johnson turned him into in that film. And Favreau kind of seemingly did that. So I'm not heartbroken that Favreau is leaving. I think that he could have done a lot better job, and he should have done a lot better job. But obviously, I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know all the politics. We know that clearly Kathleen Kennedy has given an edict to push all the feminism stuff. We've seen that in her Fortune magazine interview back in 2015, where she made it explicitly clear that is indeed what they were doing with Lucasfilm and Star Wars from the get-go. As soon as the Walt Disney Company purchased it, that was what they set out to do, and that's what they did indeed do. So who knows how much Favreau had to fight against that, or if he was actually buying into all of that stuff. It's unclear because we just don't really know outside of rumors, and Favreau doesn't really talk about a lot of that stuff. He does say that the third season was all his. The buck stopped with him, and when someone says that, I mean, it's hard not to believe him. I mean, he's the one taking all of that, but it could be like he's just kind of falling on the sword too, because maybe that's kind of the way he is. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to lie for other people. You think you'd want to tell the truth, even if it does cost you your reputation and things like that. So, but I'm not really disappointed that Jon Favreau would be leaving after The Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm really not interested in this film. It does sound like it's going to go back into tying into the Ahsoka Thrawn stuff when the third season ended with him basically getting away from that and maybe just doing missions for the New Republic, I guess, in the Outer Rim and going after Imperials and things like that. I guess that does kind of somewhat tie into what Ahsoka and the Thrawn stuff was leading up to, but I think he's better off outside of a lot of that political stuff now, because that just stuff it's just completely uninteresting and uninspiring, if I'm being honest. But let me know what you guys make of this rumor here. What do you make of Favreau being out? Are you sad about this news? Are you happy? Do you not care? Are you apathetic? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.